Hi, welcome to Archon's Academy at Press 1 for Fireball. I'm Archon, and I'm here to teach you Dungeons & Dragons. Let's begin.
Press 1 for Fireball.
Dragons. Let's begin. Today's video, instead of doing a PowerPoint, I'm going to be going over your character sheet and how to read it, and what everything means on it. I'll be doing a mix of high to medium level of detail because each thing can be broken up and will be broken up into its own video. And if you are following along with a paper sheet, it's going to look slightly different. The layout is usually a little different than the dndbeyond.com layout. I will try to tell you what I remember and what standard sheets are, but everyone has their own. So I will try to explain everything as good as I can. But let's begin. This is my character Basilius Firehand. I have leveled him down to level 5 so that he has enough feats and stuff for me to talk about, but he's level 18, I believe, otherwise, which has too many things on it for this kind of video. So as you can see up here, this is his name, this is his race, and then his class and his level. If you multi-class, it usually will say both here, but he is only a cleric at this point. Also, those of you following along on Instagram, you're going to have to open up a character sheet yourself. You can't see my screen, but you can do that easily. dndbeyond.com is free. Okay, so the first thing you're going to see up here are your 6 ability scores: Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. These are things that will be set ahead of time or filled in ahead of time if you're using a physical sheet, and the number you see in the smaller circle here, that's the value. So Strength is 14 for Basilius. The number you see in the bigger box is the modifier. That's really the number that matters more. Your base score does matter, but the modifier is the number that you're going to use more in rolls and stuff. So if you're ever asked to make a strength check or a dex check or a wisdom check without it belonging to a specific skill, this is what you will click on to roll that. Now on dndbeyond.com, anything that you click on is live. You'll see if I click here, it opens a column on the right side that explains everything in more detail. This is useful for weapons, attacks, spells, feats, anything like that. The column is going to have the higher level of detail, and the specific wording in the column is what matters if you are using rules as written, if you're playing raw. But everything on the D&D Beyond character sheet can expand into a larger column. So if you do have questions about things, I always recommend clicking on it first, seeing what it says, and seeing if the expanded definition explains it better for you. But that's where your ability scores are: Strength, Dex, Con, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. Next to that, you'll see your proficiency bonus. Now they don't have the scale here, but proficiency bonus goes up in a scale depending on your level. This is kind of how D&D balances growing levels as a character. So currently at level 5, this is the first level where you get a +3. D&D Beyond is going to automatically calculate this for you. If you're doing this with pencil and paper, there's a table in, I believe, the Player's Handbook. If it's not in the Player's Handbook, it would be in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's in one of the two. I'm pretty sure it's the Player's Handbook. But it'll tell you if you're this level overall, your proficiency bonus is this amount, all the way up to 6 at level 20. To the right of that, you have your speed. Now, it's going to default to your walking speed, but if you click on it, in the column that shows up, if you have more speeds, Basilius does not, but if you have a swimming speed, a climbing speed, a flying speed, they would show up here. And then it explains things like long jump and how you calculate that, and high jump and how you calculate that. I found that those end up being a little more complicated than usual, unless you're jumping over just like a ravine where your DM knows how far it is. But if you need to use either of those are explained here. To the right of that is where you have your inspiration. This is something a dungeon master will give you. I tend to give it for exceptional roleplay, if I feel like someone's getting really into their character or played a scene that I feel like they did a really good job with, an exceptional job. You know, everyone does a good job, but when someone does anything that's kind of standout-ish, that's when I give them inspiration. Now, you can only have one at a time. You get it, and I always play that you get it as the player, Some people, you get it as the character only, so if you're playing multiple characters, each character can have it, but I always play you get it as a player, and this is where you mark it. So if you have it, you click here. When you don't have it, you leave the box empty. To the right of that, you have your hit points, your current, and your max, and if you have any temporary, you can click on anything here to change them. If you do set your HP to 0, so if you take full damage, it does change to have your death saves, your failures, and your successes, so you can track them here. So even if you're using Roll20 like I use for most of your stuff, I track HP mostly on Roll20, but when someone's doing their death saves, I ask them to set their HP to 0. In D&D Beyond, it's just easier for everyone to track it, that it changes for that. Okay, before we go over to the other side here, we're going to go to your initiative next. This is your modifier. For most characters, it's just your dexterity modifier, which is why I said the bigger number is what matters over here. Some classes and subclasses add a couple different things into this, but for the most part, it is your dexterity modifier. So if you need to roll initiative, or if you need to know your initiative, here's where you do that. To the right of that is your armor class, and again, if you click on that, it will explain what it is and how you get there. So you can see I have a 16 for my chainmail armor, plus 2 from the shield. I have found that this is the thing that I like to check the most with D&D Beyond. D&D Beyond is really good with a lot of things, but when you get into really unique armor class scenarios, I like to make sure it's adding it correctly. Especially if you get into homebrew stuff, this is one I always recommend you double check. And then if you do have an issue, you can override it to be a different source. Like if you had an extra shield, or your DM grants you, one of my DMs had a +3 shield for a tower shield. So we just did that with overriding the AC. To the right of that, you have your defenses, which are any resistances that you have. Those will show up here. So you can see that Basilius from his Kalashtar, which you can see by hovering. He has psychic resistance. And then if you had any active conditions currently affecting you, this is where they would show up. And again, you can do that by clicking on it. The larger column shows up, and you can do that from there. Okay. Jumping over to the left side, you see your saving throw box. Now, this is mostly going to be reactive to a DM. If you step on a trap, if you are hit by a spell, you have to make a saving throw. This is where you go for that. Now, most of the time, these are just your ability modifiers, but as you can see here, Basilius has proficiency in wisdom saves and charisma saves. From various sources. I believe Kalashtar gives him one. I believe Cleric gives him the other, but I'm not sure on that. But there's various sources where you can get proficiency from. D&D Beyond automatically tracks it for you, and it's just easier to roll the saves from here. So this is where your save ability modifiers are. And then if you have advantage on any saves for any reason, this is where they're going to appear. So because of Kalashtar, Basilius has advantage on wisdom saves. So that shows up here. Underneath that, you have your senses. So this is where your passive senses are, your passive perception, investigation, and insight. These are used mostly for your DM. I think of these as like peripheral vision, I think is the best way to explain those. So passive perception is like, what does your character just notice from just standing there? While not actively looking to see anything or investigate anything, what does your character notice? Same thing with insight. Basilius, you can see, is very good at perception and insight. So Basilius, even without me as the player actively wanting to roll an insight check on someone, he's more aware of what's going on from another character's body language or an NPC's how they're behaving. He's more perceptible to it. So that's something more for the DM to notice, but this is where your passive abilities show up. Additionally, if you have dark vision or anything like that, those are also going to show up in this box. So if you can see that you don't have any of those here, no dark vision, your character does not have dark vision. Again, you can click on it to see more about different things you can have here and what they mean, such as tremor sense, and it will explain those for you. Underneath that, you have the rest of your proficiencies and your languages. These are your armor, weapon, and tool proficiencies. So Basilius, because of his Forge Cleric, is proficient with heavy armor, light armor, medium armor, and shields. There are certain, depending on which one of those, there are certain ways that they affect you if you're not proficient with them and if you're wearing them. Heavy armor, I believe you can't cast spells if you're not proficient with it and you're wearing it. It also slows you down. So there's various things there, but this is where it will tell you if you're proficient with it. dndbeyond.com also has a filter for that when you're adding stuff to your inventory, so I don't pay attention to this as much because I just filter for proficiency when I'm adding things. But if you need to know if you have it, this is where you would go to see it. You can also see your weapon proficiency, your tool proficiency, such as brewer supplies and smith's tools, and languages that Basilius speaks. So if my DM is telling me that someone is speaking in Dwarvish, Basilius will be able to understand them. You can also click on this box to add proficiencies. So if you gain proficiency not from a feat or something built into D&D Beyond, let's say you practice at it and your DM gives it to you, such as with a tool, this is where you would go to add that to your character sheet. To the right of that, the large column on the character sheet is where all of your skills are. These go in order. They show if you have proficiency, that's signified by the filled in bubble. And if you hover, it tells you that. Then it tells you what modifier you grab the ability score from. And then if you're proficient in it, it also adds your proficiency bonus. So you can see acrobatics, that's dex based. I have a -1, -1. If you go down to deception, Basilius is proficient with that. So he grabs his charisma bonus, which is +1, plus his proficiency bonus, which is +3, for a total of +4. So if I'm trying to lie to a character, Basilius is better at it because he's proficient in it. He's practiced in it. Same thing with insight, perception, persuasion. At the bottom here, you can see I've added custom skill. If you use a lot of cook's tools or brewer's supplies in Basilius's case, and you have proficiency with them, you can add it down here so that you can click on something to roll. We found that works better. And then proficiency with tools doesn't belong to one specific ability. So I'm going to use the example of cook's utensils. If you are trying to follow a recipe, me as a DM, I would say, and you're proficient with cook's tools, that's going to use your intelligence modifier because you are trying to read the recipe and recreate that. However, if you are cooking from the heart or cooking from, you know this recipe and you're just doing it, I would say that's probably something more in the wisdom base. So you would get your proficiency bonus because you're proficient with cook's utensils plus your wisdom modifier. If you are trying to, knead tough dough, I might have you do proficiency plus strength. Or if you're trying to whisk something very quickly, I might have you do dexterity plus your proficiency bonus. So the cook's utensils, if you're proficient with them, would always give you your proficiency bonus, but they don't always belong to one ability score. However, it's always easier to add them, especially if it's a tool you use a lot. We've had a couple campaigns where a character will use like painter supplies a lot, or painter's tools. Add it as a custom skill, and then you can manually add your relevant ability modifier after that. But the point is, you can add custom skills here as well that you're proficient with. You will also notice, Basilius doesn't have it, but rogues and bards will get expertise. That's going to show up as a gray circle around the black dot. What that means is you double your proficiency bonus. You add it twice. Your character has practiced this so much that they are considered an expert in it, so they get double proficiency. The last box and the largest one on the page is your everything else, essentially. It's your actions, spells, inventory, features and traits, description, notes, and all of your extras. So I'm going to go through these. I'm going to keep it kind of high level for all of these, but I'm going to explain what they are. So first you have your actions, and then underneath that you'll see it's broken down into the different kinds of actions you get as your action. So that's a little confusing, but as I've explained in other videos, on your turn you get an action and a bonus action. So you can filter here to what is relevant just for those. Or you can show them all, especially if you know what's going on more. You can just stay on this page. If you look at everything here, your weapons will show up here, plus spells that you have that get cast as an attack. And again, if you click on any of these, it expands, it gives you more detail. It has, if you have the relevant Chrome extensions, you can roll right from here. And then you can click on damage and stuff right from here as well. Underneath that, it's going to have in order the different things you can do. So first it has your actions, then it has your bonus actions, your reactions, and other. These are going to be different for each character based on your race, based on your classes, and all of that. So I'm not going to go into all of these, but every single thing here you can click on to expand it if you want more detail on what they are. Same thing here. This just filters it out. So instead of scrolling up and down, here you can only see your bonus actions. Next, you have spells. Not every class gets this. If your character is not a spellcasting class, you will not have the spells tab here, but anyone that is a spellcaster will have it. You'll see the spells that you have by level, starting with cantrips. Again, you can filter them here, all the way down to concentration and ritual. And again, you can see that stuff just by hovering over almost anything here, and then clicking on them to expand the spell so that you can see more about what it does. You can also manage your spells from here, so if you are a class that gets to change out their spells every long rest, or whatever it is that you can change out your spells at all, you would do that from managing your spells here. You also see at the top here your spellcasting ability modifier, your attack modifier, and your save DC. If you have multiple of these, if you've multi-classed, it will show each one, and then you can hover to see where you get it from. So from Cleric, Basilius has a 15 save DC. Next is your inventory. That includes your weight carried, which if you click on that, that will explain your carrying, push, drag, or lift capacities. That also explains lifting and carrying for you. You have your gold over here. Again, this was an end game character, so he has a decent amount of money. But you can keep track of your gold here. You can also change it in and out. If you are new to D&D, each one of these is 10 of the other. So 10 copper makes up 1 silver, 10 silver makes up 1 gold, 10 gold makes up 1 platinum. This is a not campaign specific, but this is a coin that you don't typically use in every campaign. So typically it's gold, silver, copper, and sometimes platinum. Under here, you can see all of your equipment. That goes by your equipment, and now they have backpacks, so if you are wearing a different kind of bag that you can keep different things in. You equip these by clicking on them. If they have the little gray box filled in, that means it's equipped to your character. And again, you can click on any of these to get a better description of it. And then you can manage your inventory right here. So as I was talking about before, where you can filter by a proficiency bonus, you can click on proficient to only see things that your character is proficient with anyway. Then you can check if you want common items or magical or containers, and then choose like weapons. So if you get to choose a weapon, or if you're looking for weapons, this is where you do it, and play around with the filters here to see what you can have. After that is all of your features and traits. You will get these from your class, from your race, and sometimes from your feats. If you have any of them, Basilius does at level 5. Again, click on any of these to expand them and get better rules and better descriptions of them, but they will be in order. If you're really looking to learn your character, this is one of the best pages for that, because these are the things that aren't going to show up as much in your actions. They do show up, but typically they're down here, not at the top. So if you want to learn the intricacies of your character and how to really use your character, I recommend studying your features and traits page. These are the cool things that will help your character stand out from other clerics, other Kalashtar, other builds, and other characters. Then you have your description based on your background, your characteristics, if you filled them in. You can see your alignment here if you set it. These are all things that you would have set when you're making your character, or you can come here afterward and you can fill them in on here. So you can see Basilius is lawful good. He has silver eyes and silver hair. He's pale skinned. 5'11", 165. So he's kind of little, but he gets stronger through various magic items in the campaign. But this is where you would find all of that. If you have notes on your character, so I wrote a good amount of backstory for my character. If I have allies, if I want to keep track of it here, if you want to use this for your notes instead, this is a good place to do that because your DM can also see this and they also have access to this. But if you want to keep track of certain characters, you can keep your notes in here. Lastly, you have extras. This is where anything is going to go if you have a pet, if you have a familiar, a summoned beast, if you have a mount, a wild shape, anything that you can see here, a battlesmith defender, miscellaneous, any vehicles that you have access to. You would add them through here, and then this ties it to your character sheet if it's relevant to. So if your modifiers affect this creature, such as a pet, if you are a Beastmaster subclass ranger, it will automatically change the numbers in here for you. Or if you're like a paladin who has fine steed and you're looking for your mount, this is where you would do that. And it's typically a warhorse. You would add it from here. This way you can see your mount and you can see your mount's character sheet without having to open it up in another window, and you can roll and everything from here. Plus you can see everything that it can do and its ability modifiers. So that's pretty much it for your character sheet. I hope this was somewhat informational. Like I said, I wanted to keep it kind of high level to medium level. Each character build is going to be different. I will be doing a video on how to build a character in the future. For the meantime, if you want to learn that, please reach out to me on the various platforms I'm on. Quick note too, I am no longer on RPG Club. Had a disagreement with the ownership there, but I have moved to startplaying.com, which I find is a lot better. It feels a lot more polished, so all of my seat rates and table rates are on startplaying.com now. So thank you. Find me at Press1 for Fireball on all of our social medias, and I hope to see you guys next week.